Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk with Grace Galletti. She is the phenomenal filmmaker who has made a really thought-provoking documentary, The Weight They Carry, about veterinarians and the struggles they find being veterinarians in this day and age. So let's see what Grace has to say. And by the way, she has a great surprise at the end. So stay with us for the whole podcast. Remember to like and share the podcast so others can hear why pets matter. Now let's listen to what Grace has to say. Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. Welcome to my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict. Hi, everyone. It's Deborah Hamilton, and I'm so glad to be back with you on Why Do Pets Matter? And I have my good friend. We've been talking over the past few months. She is remarkable, Grace Galletti, who has created a documentary and really a movement, The Weight They Carry, showing the life of veterinarians and how it might be actually killing them. So, Grace, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here and really excited to be talking about the weight they carry and continuing to raise awareness about these issues.
I know I loved your face when I said that it might be killing them, but veterinary medicine does have the highest incident of suicide. So, not to be a downer in the first 3 minutes of Why Do Pets Matter, but to make sure that we all recognize that we have to come to each other in our best form each and every day. So, before we start, Grace, why do pets matter to you?
Well, I've always loved animals, but as a kid, I was not allowed to have any pets. We traveled, and my parents just didn't want to like deal with it, which I understand. But I finally was able to get my own cat like 5 years ago, and his name is Turtle. And at first it was actually really stressful. I had a lot of anxiety. I was struggling with my mental health at the time, and it was like November of the 2020. So the pandemic was happening, probably why I had a lot of anxiety. But I really didn't think that I could take care of a cat. Right now it seems kind of ridiculous because it's so easy. But back then, like Turtle kept waking me up at night, and I was sleep deprived, and I was just struggling. And after a few nights of like putting him in the living room, and sleeping well, sleep is so important to be stable. And then we got a little routine going, and everything kind of settled, and we've been best friends ever since. And it's just really so wonderful. I mean, he's been really helpful for my own mental health, apart from the beginning. um but yeah, I mean, it's just so wonderful to have someone to like come home to who's just smells so good. And
I
it's just, yeah, it's just like an adorable ball of fluff, who's there, when I'm crying, when I'm tired, when I'm feeling good. I can just cuddle him. And yeah, I mean, pets matter so much because they're just always there, and Yeah, I think someone on another one of your podcasts had said that they offer unconditional love, and that's totally true. And it's kind of a way to relearn love that, from perhaps previous circumstances were not perfect. And yeah, so it's been a really great way to learn how to take care of another being and taking care of myself too.
I love that. You know, they think we're perfect. I've now shifted to a lot of information on my website that comes from the place of try to be the person your pet thinks you are, because they really do think you're the cat's pajamas, to Turtle's fur color, his pajamas, uh, because they really create that space where at the beginning he was feeling you out, you were feeling him out, and now you both are in a cadence that creates that wonderful space that
Hmm.
makes us feel better when we're feeling sad, feel happier when we're feeling happy, and know that some being in the present is so glad to have you in their life.
Hmm.
It just
Yeah.
is phenomenal. And so you are a filmmaker.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I am also trauma informed, so I focus a lot on mental health. That's really my specialty because of my own struggles with mental health. I know how hard it is to even just talk about it, to, have conversations with friends or family or, being in classrooms. It's kind of awkward. I think the pandemic has made it a little more acceptable to talk about mental health, but it's still pretty stigmatized, especially when you talk about like deeper issues like suicide. And so my mission as a filmmaker and journalist is to really destigmatize mental health. And what helped me in my healing journey was hearing other people talk about their own experiences and to realize that I was not alone. And so that's what I'm kind of trying to give to people is yeah, like feeling that they are not alone, understanding that it's not them, they're not crazy. There's a lot of systemic issues that can contribute to their mental health, and that it's not just their responsibility as an individual to heal themselves. It takes a lot of change. And then, yeah, to be able to talk about it and heal.
I I think that that one statement is you're not alone is such an impactful and important statement, especially for what you're bringing to various areas. Now, when did you get started? Because you're so young. I would love to know how long, and did you know that this was something you wanted to do, or was it something that unfolded for you and you said, wow, this is really feeding my soul. I'm staying present and grounded. So let me navigate this a little further.
Hmm. No, I'm definitely not one of those people who got out of the womb and was like, I want to be a documentary filmmaker. That was not me. I actually did engineering in undergrad and I wrote a lot during that time. And so I really, um, I thought it wasn't bad writing. And so storytelling was something that was really important at the time for my own healing because I was struggling a lot with mental health. And it was a way for me to express myself and deal with all these complicated emotions I didn't know how to handle. So I eventually moved towards creative writing, and then I happened to take a documentary class, and I was really interested in it, but I didn't really know how to move forward with that. And then the pandemic happened, and I was looking into grad school again because the economy wasn't great. And I found this journalism program at UC Berkeley, and they had a really good video slash documentary program there. And at first, I thought I would be like multimedia, like try some video classes, but maybe I would do something else, and it wouldn't be my focus. But after, 2 years of doing a lot of documentary work, I just fell in love with it. And a lot of my work has been, on the serious end of the spectrum, but the making of it has always been really fun. So, with the weight they carry,
Which
it
is a new documentary that is going sort of viral, which I'm so glad for you. Tell us a little bit about how you came upon the topic and then how all the doors seemed to um, open when they needed to for you to continue that journey.
So it's really thanks to kind of why pets matter. It kind of goes back to that because I was at the veterinary office with my cat Turtle, and I think he had a fever, and it was kind of stressful. And I was like looking up on Reddit, sort of like what was happening, and I happened to find that there were a lot of people like yelling at veterinarians, and calling them out on social media and like cyberbullying them. And that really lit a spark in my mind because a lot of what I've been doing is mental health related. And I was like, this doesn't sound good for their mental health. And when I looked into it, I saw that they actually have a higher suicide rate than the general population. Some studies say that it's about 2 times higher than the general population. And immediately, I was really surprised. And when I talked to people, they had no idea. So I knew that this was something that needed to be talked about. And then on the other side of things, working in documentary, things need to be visual. And I thought that it was a really compelling visual story because of the animals. And, everyone loves animals. And even when we were just showing, some really rough footage from to our like workshop class, everyone was really invested because there's just the automatic tension of what's going to happen to these animals. Like you automatically, they're so innocent that you just care about them and you want to root for them. So it was kind of this perfect, honestly, story because it was not talked about. Pet parents really didn't like 9 out of 10 times I talked about it, people had no idea. And then it was also very visual, um, and a good way to break the silence around this topic.
And the emotion, because there's so many emotions going on, I think, while you are caring for your pet. Like you said, when you first got Turtle, the first few weeks might have been a little rough because you were both getting used to each other's schedule. And then you become sort of symbiotic. And then you go to this person who doesn't know Turtle as well as you do. How do you give them that information while also respecting that they have, a medical degree?
Hmm. Yeah. And it's hard because I've had, human doctors not treat me super well. So it is hard to trust someone else. And I think there is an issue of, hedge funds buying up veterinary companies and, perhaps putting profit over the well-being of the staff, the well-being of the animals. So there are these issues where you do have to be careful who you bring your animal to. Right now, I always check, is this family owned? Is this, a, big
Corporate.
company, corporate? And I really try to go more towards the family owned practices because I just don't trust corporate. Um, but
It's so interesting because, in the scheme of things, there are some corporate entities that have provided veterinary medicine in areas that haven't necessarily had veterinary medicine and created that opportunity for pet owners. And yet, people are a little skeptical about the tendencies or the rationale for buying up practices, independent practices, and becoming more of a group practice. And yes, they can save money buying in bulk for the entire group. And that may or may not be passed on to the pet owners. However, I think that the independent practice may pride itself more on a little more than 15 minutes a visit, uh, because there's, you know, what are they called, the schematics or something that you have to get through, the production issues that you have to get through. And I think that for most pet owners, new pet owners, they're unsure about this new way of practicing veterinary medicine. We all are on our phones and want everything to be at our fingertips and done one, two, three. And when it comes to our pets, maybe that isn't what we want. So I heard that when you said that, I heard that, well, the corporates are a little, you don't know them. And the vets might be fabulous at the corporates, and yet they might be working under some pressure, which I think is what you were able to explore in your documentary. There's some additional pressure there that may not be serving the veterinarian for the purpose that they got into veterinary medicine.
Yeah, I mean, should we talk about sort of what their stressors are and why they have this higher suicide rate?
Well, absolutely, because I mean, I want everyone to find a place where the documentary is being played, and we'll
Hmm.
put those links out so that you can get a broader audience, because it's important for pet owners and veterinarians to understand that someone has opened the door and put a flashlight in and shown some of the things that might need addressing. We're not saying that, one is better than the other, or we're just exploring and curious. It's sort of my mantra. Let's be curious about how we can make everybody's life better, the pet owner and the veterinarian.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I think that it's just something to be aware of because there are a lot of myths about veterinarians that, they make a lot of money and they only care about that and that things are really expensive because yeah, they need to buy a Porsche or something like that. But actually they struggle with a lot of debt and they don't make as much money as human doctors. And so they really do come into this practice for the animals and they want your animal to live and to succeed and to thrive. And they're not, I mean, at least for the most part, are not trying to like rip you off and just do whatever to take your money. Um,
They're recommending things that could be good for your dog. Do you have an option whether or not to take it? Yes. Um, and an educated consumer is the best customer. And how can we support our veterinarians so that they have a really good life,
mhm.
while their clients are also having a good life?
Well, one of the stressors is just, the veterinary profession itself. It is hard. I mean, you deal with cute puppies, and then the next case you see is euthanasia. And, there's also a lot of these, ethical dilemmas because some people have like limitations in their finances and they can't, maybe provide a surgery or a medication that could save their pet's life. And it's really hard to be having all these really morally challenging discussions and problems. And then, you just have to go to the next case and you don't have time to process. So I think there's really systemic things that need to be addressed in the veterinary profession itself of, more debriefs. I made a film about firefighters and they see a lot of bad stuff. It's just, they do a lot of medical calls, even the fire calls. It's very stressful. They see a lot of things that are traumatic. And I followed the Berkeley Fire Department, and they had created a peer support program to create these debriefs whenever they had sort of triggering incident, and they check in on each other more, and they ask ourselves like, "Hey, I know you had this." And this call could have like reminded you of something that you experienced. Are you okay? And so kind of bringing that into the veterinary profession, I think
In
is
a
really
more thoughtful
important.
in a more thoughtful way. It might be hit or miss,
Hmm.
but you're bringing up an incredible point, because yes, the firefighters have incredibly emotional responses to different things. But then they have downtime. In the vet industry, there's really no downtime until you get home. And if you have a family, you don't have any downtime. I'll just say that because I had a family and you don't have any downtime. So, how do you process that? What did you come up with when you were doing the fireman? And then how did you bring that into the vet med, if you did, or are suggesting it and possibly carrying through with, future things?
Actually, I feel like the firefighter documentary was very hopeful, a little bit funny, and really kind of highlighted a solution. Whereas the veterinary documentary, I was really focused on the problem because I feel like, firefighters, it's obvious what they see is hard. They would be traumatized by it. I feel like that makes sense. But veterinarians, I think the way I approached it was really more, why is this happening? And trying to sort of kind of like peel the layers of an onion and little by little get to the heart of why they're struggling. And so, if you want to watch it, it's available to stream. It's also available to, you can host a community screening, which is really great because then you can discuss amongst each other the issue. You can do a little Q&A with me or, vet in your community. And it's really great to be able to not just watch, but also process. Because it is a heavier topic. And the other thing that I've done on this, like my reason for doing this was, like I said, to raise awareness and also to make people feel that they're not alone, but also to connect people with resources. So I also added resources on my website for people in the veterinary field. And also to add, it's not just veterinarians. It's the whole staff. It's vet techs, it's support staff, it's people in the at the front desk. So everyone is concerned, and it's not just veterinarians. Um,
I love that. I love that because it is a culture within the practice. And it's interesting because in the work that I do, I always stress to the veterinarians, you really have to be transparent with the client and bring them in as a team member. And most of them have a lot of pushback to that. And I go, how will they ever know what you are dealing with if you don't enable them? And I love how you said peel back the onion because, yeah, I go from a puppy to telling someone their dog has cancer and needs chemotherapy, which they may or may not be able to afford, and it's a young dog. Um, and then I go on to a dog. I had a vet, and I just got chills up my back. I had a dog, and we put her to sleep. The vet was not able to come, and about 5 years later, she said to me, I always regretted not being able to help you transition Buffy.
mm,
I said, well, we got Lap of Love and they were wonderful and this and that. She goes, no, she said, I brought Buffy into the world. And I love to help the families and be there with them because that dog's been as much a part of my practice life as it's been a part of their life. And these are the kind of vets we want, right? And I didn't even think that it would matter to her
oh,
that I took Buffy to Lap of Love because she wasn't able to do it, and Buffy needed to transition because she was not well. And
hmm
realized, wow, like you said, there are so many emotions going on that we don't really get to see as pet parents.
hmm Yeah, and you don't know if they are dealing with an emergency. And yeah, one of the days I came to film, they had just said that, oh, you should have been there the other day because there was like a trail of blood like on the floor, and there was like a trauma case where like a dog had been hit by a car. And you know, you don't know what the practice is doing right now, and all you think about is your animal because obviously it's like your baby and you care about it and you want it to be seen now. But just maybe taking a step back and thinking they're doing the best they can. They might have, other cases that are perhaps a little bit more important going on. Um, and just, yeah, just trying to take a breath and tr trying to be human and understanding that, yeah, they
Having
are
a little
trying the
grace,
best they can.
not to, belabor it, but having a little grace, which is a beautiful name and a beautiful state of mind. Have a little grace. I remember my vet, before she opened her practice, was a roving vet. She would practice at every vet's office who was on vacation. And once there were like three of us waiting like 2 hours to see her. And the receptionist at this one vet's clinic said, our clients won't wait 15 minutes without coming up and saying, how come I'm not being seen yet? And we all looked up and we said, well, we know when our time comes, we're going to get our time. And so we're okay with that. Do we do we block 2 hours when we go to see our vet? Yes, which is seemingly ridiculous. However, we don't know if somebody's going to come in ahead of us or behind us who has a sick dog that she has to take care of. If God forbid that was me, then she would take me. And so for me and for the rest of the people who were sitting there, because there were like three of us, we said we know that when we need her, she's going to be there. And I think that's the thing that may be lost in translation, when people come in for routine visits, or when maybe a different mentality comes in to run the vet experience for the vet, for their staff, and for the clients.
And yeah, that's kind of where sort of both sides of the equation come in. Yes, the pet parent can have a little more grace, like we mentioned, but I think also, veterinarians go into this because they love animals and not necessarily people as much. Although it depends. Um, but yeah, I think there's also a side of things where this is the worst, or oftentimes it's the worst day of someone. Maybe not life, but it's a bad day, and veterinarians maybe need to know how to express that and how to talk to someone when they are experiencing intense distress. And I mean, how do you, I don't think this stuff is really taught in the school. I mean,
They
you
get a
know,
bit of communication. I always, because that's what I've brought to veterinary medicine, the ability to take a step back and breathe.
Mhm.
Mental health, if you can breathe in and breathe out 4 or 5 times, and really ground yourself, you can sometimes work yourself through something that's really challenging. But they don't see that because they are such A-type personalities, which I love. I am not. Um, I sort of slide through as a C personality. But I was very motivated, in law school and things like that. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that sometimes I have to take a step back and ask myself whether or not this is worth it, whether or not I'm perceiving it correctly. The other thing that I find with people that I work with, that they bring bias in the room, both the pet owner, because my last vet was really great and this vet really stinks, or vice versa. My last
Mhm.
vet really stinks and I'm not going to give this vet the chance to stink. Um, and the vets go in with bias about somebody, say, with a bully breed, or somebody who's a breeder, or somebody who has their fifth dog. And how do they have their fifth dog? Isn't it too expensive? They create these realities that aren't there. And so the documentary that you've brought into reality is giving all of us a minute to stop and breathe.
Mm, yeah. And I think that kind of going back on the firefighter documentary that had more a solutions oriented approach, I mean, I think that focusing on the problem is important because you want to feel seen, and it is important to linger and to show people that it's okay that other people have felt this way, and that, in your darkest moments, that you're not alone. And at the same time, I think that, if I were to do it again, I would add a little more solutions and a little more joy, which actually is kind of what I am doing. Um, I'm so we've screened a lot in different organizations, different communities, and we've gotten really good feedback, and we've been able to connect a lot of people with resources and really raise awareness about this issue. Actually, I had a couple conversations last week where people had heard about the film, which was just really cool to know that and to hear that it's been kind of making waves through the pet vet world. And so what I'm trying to do is expand the film because the short film, it just scratches the surface. I mean, I don't really talk about veterinarian debt, and how expensive school is. It doesn't talk really about the financial discussions and the issues with talking about those things with pet parents. There's just a lot of things that it doesn't mention, including, you know, the joy of being in this practice. Like why do people do this? And it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of joy. There's a lot of pets that they do save. And a lot of people that even if they aren't able to save the pet, they are still able to kind of comfort the pet parent and like guide them through the loss. And so, yeah, I've decided to expand the weight they carry into a feature-length film. And stay tuned because we're about to start fundraising, and start developing. And I've been having conversations with people to interview. So if you're hearing this and you're a pet parent or a veterinarian, please, and you would like to share your story, please reach out. Or if you're even interested in participating in the documentary, again, please reach out. I would love to talk to you.
I love that because I was sitting here while you were talking and I said, there's at least 7 or 8 chapters here. It could be one of, a series of documentaries for the wonderfulness of it, and then the difficulties that both pet parents and veterinarians experience on so many levels, right? Not just, um, on end of life and things, but there are so many things that come up in a veterinarian's life and in a pet parent's life. You lose your job. You get sick. Can you take care of your pet? I mean, I have a friend now who's sick, and I said to her, well, do you still have a dog? And she goes, well, no, I can't possibly, I know I'm going to die. And I don't know, I absolutely respect her choice. And yet I would be so lonely if I didn't have a dog with me, and I would make plans where whoever was coming to help me would be able to help me with my dog, or if not, keep my dog, bring my dog over for an hour or so, so that, like you said, when you were petting Turtle, you realize that the endorphins were so great. And okay, I mean, that's why therapy dogs are so great, because they
Mhm.
go to the hospitals and make sure that people aren't totally detached from that human animal bond. It might not be their dog, but it's a dog, and or a cat. Well, cats aren't really therapies because so many people are allergic, but you know what I mean. And so I love that you're going to expand it to a full document. We have, Why Do Pets Matter will fully support whatever you're doing and help get everything out there, because for me, this is the conversation that everybody's a little afraid to have, because it's a scary conversation. As you said, we've gotten better talking about mental health, but veterinarians are supposed to be supermen, and so they're, and women, and they're not supposed to really have a downtime, but they do. And I think that if we all create that space like the firemen do, to decompress, to take care of ourselves, and to learn to communicate in a way that's less reactive and defensive and a little more just curious and thoughtful. Tell me what you're thinking, Grace, as opposed to this is what you have to do. Because, at that point, Grace doesn't know whether to wind her watch or take a walk. I mean, she doesn't know. This is all new, whatever's happening to her pet. And giving people the time to really have that grace is phenomenal. So I am so thrilled. I can't believe we've run out of time. But I am looking forward to helping in any way I can. And Grace, give everybody the place where they can go to either watch it independently. I'm going to put it in the show notes too, everyone. So if you can't write this down because you're driving, that's fine. Grace is going to tell you how to follow her, how to watch the documentary, and how to support the greater effort that she's putting in to create this conversation.
So it's really simple. It's just theweighttheycarry.com. And so you can find all of the information on how to stream it, how to host a screening, resources, little actions that you can take. And I think just one last point is my hope with this documentary is not just to focus on the veterinary experience, but also the pet parent experience, and to bring them in more. Because what I realized through a screening with the Association for Pet Loss and Bereavement is that pet loss is really stigmatized as well, and it's a big thing, and it's so emotional and impactful. And maybe it's not taken seriously enough right now. And so I would love to kind of basically connect veterinarians and pet parents on mental health through this like shared love of animals. Because we both love animals and we want them to live and we want them to thrive. And hopefully through that we can kind of open up this discussion of mental health and how we can all take care of each other.
I love
And then one last organization I want to shout out is Pets Are Wonderful Support. Pets Are Wonderful Support Paws. And they have little organizations around the country, and they help with taking care of your pet if you are sick, if you have to go to the hospital, things like that. So check them out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Grace. And until next time, everyone, kiss your pet for me. This is Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law Mediation and the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. Take care.